Okay, so I'm going to say something that might sound a little controversial. Most natural beauty isn't actually natural. And I don't mean that as a criticism, okay? I mean it as just an observation because I think once you see it, you can't unsee it. When people say someone looks natural, what they're reacting to isn't the absence of anything being done. It's the absence of obvious work. And there is a difference. And that difference is basically the entire premise of this episode. We have this cultural idea that beauty should look effortless, like someone just woke up, put nothing on their face, and somehow looks perfectly refreshed, lifted, balanced. And that's what people are drawn to. But in reality, that look is almost always the result of maintenance. Sometimes it's skincare, sometimes it's years of sun protection, sometimes it's subtle treatments. Just a thoughtful amount of Botox or conservative amount of filler, laser treatments that improve skin quality over time. And when it's done well, you don't see it. You just see someone who looks good and you can't quite put your finger on why that is. And that's where the natural beauty idea gets complicated because what people are really describing isn't natural. It's well-maintained, it's subtle, it's intentional, but invisible. And honestly, that's the goal. The best aesthetic work is the work that you don't notice. So today I want to unpack this idea. What natural beauty actually means, why we're so drawn to it, how much of what we think is effortless is actually carefully maintained behind the scenes, and what happens when the whole thing goes wrong in both directions. So let's get into it. So what do we actually mean when we say that someone looks natural? Because it's a word I hear constantly from patients, online, in culture. She just looks so natural. I just want something natural. And when you really break it down, natural almost never means untouched. It means effortless. It means someone looks like they didn't do anything, even if they did. There's this whole idea that I woke up like this became deeply embedded in our culture. The goal isn't just to look good, it's to look good in a way that doesn't look like you tried. And that's where things get interesting. Think about what we actually respond to when we call somebody natural. Skin that's smooth, but not obviously made up. A forehead that looks rested and relaxed, but just enough that it does look frozen. Lips that look full, but not done. A glow that's healthy, but not treated. Those are all things that people interpret as natural. But those results didn't usually happen by accident. They're the product of small, consistent things that are done over time. And when it's done well, nothing stands out. There's no single feature that looks overcorrected or over-exaggerated. Everything just looks balanced. And that's really what people are responding to. Not the absence of effort, but the absence of anything obvious. There's also a stigma piece that we'll get into more in a minute, but the short version basically is that people are often completely fine with improving their appearance. They just don't necessarily want to talk about how. So they walk this line, they want this result, but they don't want the process to show. And that expectation has shaped the entire aesthetics industry. So what actually goes into the natural look? Because when you break it down, it's rarely one thing. It's a collection of small, consistent habits that have been built over time. It's good skincare, daily sunscreen, which I can't overstate the importance of, regular visits with the dermatologist. Sometimes it's Botox, just enough to soften movement without over-freezing anything. Sometimes it's a conservative, thoughtful amount of filler, restoring volume in key places without changing how someone looks. Laser treatments to improve skin quality. This is texture and tone and an overall glow. And there are things that aren't medical at all. Hair color, brows, professional makeup, even lighting and photography. They play a massive role in how someone is perceived in the world. When all of those things come together consistently, the result looks effortless. But it's not effortless. It's intentional and it's built over time, not just in one appointment. I see this dynamic a lot in my practice. Patients will sometimes say, almost jokingly, that they have to explain to their husbands that these treatments aren't about looking different. They're about looking normal. That this is maintenance, like getting your hair colored or getting your nails done, taking care of your skin. It's not transformation. It's just upkeep. And I think that reframe, it matters because when it's done well, you don't see the Botox, you don't see the filler, you just see someone who looks like herself, maybe just a little more rested, a little more refreshed. Looking effortless requires effort. That's not a contradiction. That's just reality. And nowhere is this more visible than with celebrities and public figures, because they're the ones who really shape what we collectively think of as natural beauty. We see someone on a red carpet or in an interview or in a candid photo, and you think, wow, they really look good. They look incredible and so natural. But what we're seeing in those moments is almost always very carefully assembled. Professional makeup artists, hairstylists, careful lighting, professional photography, and a lot of prep that happens long before that very moment. Skin treatments, lasers, consistent skincare, sometimes subtle aesthetic procedures. They're done conservatively over time. When all of that is executed well, it's effortless. It reads as effortless, but it's not accidental. It's produced. And here's what's interesting. Many public figures will describe their look as natural. They don't really say that they do much. And I don't think that that's always dishonesty. I think it comes back to how we define natural, because what we're responding to isn't the absence of maintenance. It's the absence of anything obvious. So when you add it all up, what we're calling natural beauty is often professionally produced, carefully maintained, deliberately understated, which brings me to the idea, or the question rather, of genetics, because I know someone listening is thinking about it. Yes, genetics are real. Some people are genuinely born with advantages: thicker skin, better collagen production, less baseline sun damage, more balanced facial structure. And you can see that early on. Some people just seem to age more slowly. That's not imagined. It's important to acknowledge that, because otherwise people feel like they're doing everything right and still failing short of something that's actually attainable for them. But genetics are just the starting point. They're not the whole story. What I see over time in my practice is that lifestyle and maintenance seem to just matter just as much, if not more. Sun exposure, sleep, proper nutrition, stress, even small things like consistently how someone wears sunscreen. All of that accumulates over time, over years. You'll have someone with great genetics who spent years in the sun without any protection, and eventually you'll see pigmentation, you'll see lines, you'll see loss of elasticity, you'll see texture changes. And then you have someone else who maybe didn't start with the same genetic advantages, who's been consistent, who wears sunscreen, who takes care of their skin, who invests in maintenance, and over time, they look better than expected. Aging is cumulative. It's not just like one big moment. It's the result of thousands of small exposures and habits over the years. We can't control our genetics, but we can control how we take care of our skin. And genetics may start the story, but maintenance writes the rest of it. So let's talk about something that I genuinely find fascinating and maybe like also a little frustrating. Almost anyone you ask who with incredible skin, what they do with it, 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you some version, oh, it's just I get good sleep and I drink water. And look, I'm a doctor. I know what water does for your skin. Water is fabulous. Water is great, but sorry, water isn't giving you that. So why are people doing this? Why do so many of us, and I'm not throwing stones here, this is just deeply human, why do we actively deny the work that we put into how we look? Because here's the truth. Wanting to look amazing and wanting to look like you didn't try are living rent-free in the same brain at the same time without any apparent irony. And that tension is worth unpacking. The first piece is stigma. There is still, even in this 2026, with med spas on every single corner, a real social stigma attached to cosmetic treatments. Somewhere along the way, we decided that caring about appearance was shallow, that if you did something to enhance how you look, that was vanity. Weakness, somehow less than. So people hide that, not because they regret the choice, they love results, but because they don't want to be judged for making it. Then there's this fear of judgment, and I think that's worth separating. Stigma is the cultural weight. Fear of judgment is personal. It's the specific anxiety of what will my mother-in-law think, my coworkers, my friends who have never had anything done. It's the fear that someone will look at your face instead of seeing you. And that fear is real, even if it's slowly, thankfully, becoming less warranted. But the deepest reason, the one that doesn't get talked about enough, is the desire to appear effortless. There's a beauty ideal that's baked into our culture, that the best kind of beautiful is just accidental, that good genes did the heavy lifting and you were just simply born lucky. Effort in that framework is almost embarrassing. It implies that you needed to try. And needing to try implies that you needed to fix something. It's the same reason people say that they just threw this on when they're clearly dressed impeccably, or they didn't really study before like scoring a perfect result for an exam. There's the perception of effortlessness that we reward in society, and beauty is not immune to that. So here's what's wild though. The beauty industry is a $500 billion global industry. Injectables are the fastest growing segments of aesthetic medicine and have been for years. People are doing things, a lot of people, more than ever. And yet the prevailing mythology is still, I have good skin. We have a bizarre collective agreement where millions of people are actively investing in their appearances, their time, their money, their trust in providers like me, and then publicly performing like none of it's actually happening. That performance has a cost. When someone in the public eye, a celebrity, an influencer, or just the most put together person in your friend group denies what they've done, they don't just protect themselves from judgment, they quietly shift the goalposts for everyone who's watching. Suddenly, standard isn't, oh, she looks amazing and she gets great work done. It's that she looks amazing and does nothing. And now everyone who isn't achieving that result with water or sleep feels like they're failing at something that they were never set up to win. And that's the part that bothers me. Not the treatments. It's never the treatments. It's the silence that's around them. Because there is nothing shallow about wanting to look your best. Nothing vain about investing in yourself. Nothing wrong with a little help. What's worth examining, what I think we owe each other, is honesty about what natural actually means. Because natural beauty, as we've constructed it, this unearned, effortless, just rolled out of bed perfection, it's a myth. It's always been a myth. And the sooner that we're honest about that, the better all of us are. Okay, so I just spent a couple minutes arguing the I do nothing thing. It's a fiction. Now I'm going to make what sounds like the opposite argument because intellectual honesty, it requires it. Sometimes the pendulum swings too far the other way. We've all seen it. And I don't say that to be unkind. I truly believe that most people who end up overtreated were chasing something they genuinely wanted. But there is a version of aesthetic medicine that has overcorrected, where rejecting the I do nothing myth has quietly become more is more and more is better. Faces that have lost their natural movement, lips that have outgrown the face that they live on, cheeks that sit where cheeks don't anatomically belong, features that are so amplified that they've stopped reading as enhanced and started reading as altered. This is not a judgment of the people in that chair. It's a conversation about what happens when the goals shift. And a lot of that comes down to trends, and aesthetic medicine is not immune to trends. There have been very specific looks that have dominated certain eras of Instagram, certain years of reality TV that filter down into the treatment rooms everywhere. The pillow cheeks, the overfilled lips, the completely frozen foreheads. Those weren't accidents. They were, in their moment, aspirational. The problem with chasing a trend in aesthetics, as opposed to chasing a trend in, say, shoes, is that trends in aesthetics live in your face. Faces aren't seasonal. You can't just like return them in 30 days if it gets out of style. Clinically, the issue I see most often is overfilling. Filler is an extraordinary tool. I use it. I love it. My patients love their results. But filler, when it's placed in excess or placed repeatedly without assessing what's already there, it changes the structural balance of the face. You lose light and shadow. You lose what makes a face 3D looking and alive. Everything starts to look puffy instead of lifted. And walking that back is a real process. And then there are exaggerated features, which usually come from wanting something very specific and very dramatic. I understand the impulse, but there's a meaningful difference between enhancement and reconstruction. When features stop looking like they belong to the face that they're on, something has been lost. And what's been lost is often the thing that make that face interesting to begin with. What I keep coming back to in my practice, in my philosophy, is this. Good aesthetic work should look balanced, subtle. It should look like the best version of you, not a different person who's wearing your name. The goal is never to transform, it's to refine, to restore, to take what's already there and make it more like itself. When it's done right, people shouldn't be able to put their finger on exactly what changed. They should just think, she looks really good. She looks incredible. She looks rested. She looks like herself, just elevated. And that's the art of it. That's what I'm chasing every time. and truly good work, it doesn't need to be denied almost. It looks just like you on your best day indefinitely. So if natural beauty, as we've discussed and sold it, is a myth and overdone is the wrong correction, what are we actually going for? I want to reframe this because I don't think natural beauty is meaningless. I think we've just been defining it wrong. Real natural beauty isn't about doing nothing. It's about the result looking like nothing was done, while actually being the product of intention, of knowledge, and care. Starting with healthy skin. And I know that sounds super basic, but just stick with me because healthy skin is genuinely underrated as a goal. It's not perfect skin. It's not filtered skin. Skin that really has texture and life to it. It's hydrated, has even tone. It glows because it actually is functioning and living well. That's the foundation of everything. No amount of filler or neurotoxin does what good skin does. And when skin is healthy, everything else we do works better. Then there's facial harmony, a concept I come back to constantly because it's the most honest way to describe what a skilled injector is actually trying to achieve. Harmony means that the features make sense together. The lips belong to the face, the cheeks make sense to the jaw, the eyes are framed, they're not overwhelmed. Nothing is competing for attention on the face. When a face has harmony, you don't fixate on any one feature. You just see the person, and that's exactly the point. And then there's subtle enhancement, which is honestly my love languages in this practice. Subtle doesn't mean minimal effort. It doesn't mean we didn't do much. It means that we did exactly enough. We stopped where we should have. The result is calibrated to the individual, not to a trend, not to a template, not to someone else's before and after. To you, to your anatomy, your proportions, your face at rest and in motion. Subtle is actually harder than dramatic. Dramatic is easy to see. Subtle is easy to feel. You look in the mirror and you think, yeah, that's me, without being able to exactly explain why. Which brings me to the thing that I say most to patients more than anything else. The goal is not to look different. It's to look like yourself on a really good day. Not a different person, not a younger version of someone else, not a composite of every feature you've ever admired on someone else. You, rested, bright, at your very best. And that's it. That's the whole philosophy. The patients who leave my office the happiest are almost never the ones who want the biggest change. They're the ones who come in knowing what they love about their face. And they just want help keeping it. And that's the conversation I want to be having. That's the kind of medicine that I practice. And that, to me, is what natural beauty actually means. So where's all this going? Because something is genuinely shifting. As someone who reads literature and goes to conferences and talks to colleagues, and most importantly, listens to patients, I can tell you that the direction is clear. The future of aesthetic medicine is quieter. It starts with prevention. Probably the single biggest mindset shift that I've seen in recent years, and one that I'm completely here for. We're no longer waiting for someone to be bad enough to treat. The conversation has moved upstream. Patients are coming in earlier, late 20s, early 30s, not because something is wrong, but because they understand that the best aesthetic outcome is the one where you never had to do a lot in the first place. Maintaining collagen is a lot easier than replacing it. Preserving volume is easier than restoring it. Keeping a brow in position is a lot easier than lifting one that's already fallen. Prevention, it's not vanity, it's just strategy. And then there's the focus on skin quality. And this one excites me. For a long time, aesthetic medicine was very structure focused. Volume here, relaxing a muscle here. Structure still matters enormously, but the conversation now has shifted significantly towards the surface, the actual quality. Tone, luminosity of the skin. Patients want glow, they want their skin to look alive. And the treatments that deliver those results, like lasers and resurfacing, medical grade skincare, growth factors, they're having a real moment now. Because when your skin quality is exceptional, you need less of everything else. It's the ultimate force multiplier. So collagen stimulation is where I see the most exciting innovation right now. We moved well beyond just filling a space. The goal is increasing the body's own regenerative processes to stimulate the skin to produce what it used to produce on its own. Biostimulators, radiofrequency, microneedling, certain laser modalities. These aren't just treating the surface. They're improving the actual architecture of the skin over time. The results are gradual, they build. And they just look incredibly natural because they essentially are your own collagen, just with a little bit of encouragement. And all this feeds the broader shift towards subtlety, which feels like a cultural correction as much as a clinical one. The era of obviously done face, it's winding down. Patients are asking for less. They're pushing back on aggressive treatment plans. They're bringing in photos of themselves from 10 years ago and saying, I want to look more like that, not photos of someone else. This is fundamentally different from a conversation that the industry was having a decade ago. The best injectors I know are now using less product than they were 5 years ago, and they're getting better results, not because the products have changed. They have changed. They've drastically improved, but because the philosophy has precision over volume, subtlety over spectacle. The future of aesthetic medicine looks a lot like what good medicine always has been when it's practiced with intention, with healthy skin. It's maintained over time. Treatments that work with your face instead of just on top of it. Results that age gracefully because they were designed to. Natural, just honestly. I know that we've covered a lot of ground today, and before I let you go, I want to sit for a second with what I actually hope you take away. Not a treatment plan, not a product recommendation, just a reframe. The idea that some people are naturally, effortlessly, genetically blessed, and the rest of us are simply just making do. And it's a story that we've been told for a very long time, and it has never been fully true. Not now, not before injectables existed, really not ever. Women have always found ways to care for their appearance. The tools have just changed. What's different now is that the tools are genuinely extraordinary. We can support skin health in ways that weren't possible a generation ago. We can restore what time takes quietly from us in ways that don't announce themselves anymore. We can look vital and healthy and rested and like ourselves for longer. That, it's not a myth. That's just medicine that's practiced well. But here's the part that I want to leave you with. None of it matters if you're going or if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're chasing someone else's face, if you're trying to outrun a standard that was never real to begin with, if you're sitting across from a provider who hasn't asked you what you love about how you look, the best version of this, the version that I try to practice every single day, it starts with you, as you are. And all it does is just asks, how do we take care of this? How do we keep it? How do we make sure that 10 years from now, you still look like you? Just like really, really well version of you. And that question changes everything. If today's episode got you thinking about your relationship with beauty, with treatments, with the stories that you tell about both, I'd love to hear from you. Come find me on Instagram, send me a DM, leave a review if this resonated with you. This podcast exists because these conversations matter to me. And if you've been curious about what a thoughtful, physician-led approach to aesthetics actually means like in practice, we're at Line Eraser MD in Livingston, New Jersey. Come see us. I'm Dr. Carol Eisenstat, and this is the Line Eraser Podcast. See you next time.